When this trailer dropped, everyone was quick to point out the nerf to Akuma's side switch combo route with V-Skill 1. Currently, this combo always side switches mid-screen and stays in front versus cornered opponents while also building V-meter for Akuma, so it's a really good route for him. I've seen a lot of takes online about what this nerf means for the character's future tier placement. Everything from it's going to kill him and it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect him at all, and even that it isn't even a nerf. So let's dissect it and apply all the appropriate context that I think people are leaving out while they spitball their first impressions. For the aforementioned proper context, I want to take a quick detour throughout the history of Akuma's balancing changes to see what the character has gone through to remain consistently high tier, and often considered top 1 in the game. I myself was an Akuma main from Season 2 to 3.5, and my experience with the character should help me form an objective opinion. First off, the Season 2 patch. This is the only patch where Akuma was given a significant buff, and it's still his biggest buff to date. Akuma himself only received buffs this patch, as the universal changes to reversals were not directly aimed at Akuma. Ryu, Ken, Kami, and Nakali also received this change, and it was one of the most controversial changes in Street Fighter history, not just Street Fighter V. Akuma's 25 health buff was also somewhat controversial, with many claiming he didn't need it, and Capcom should keep tradition of Akuma being the lowest health character in the game. Despite a character having less health than Akuma existing in the last entry in the series being Seth, who had less health than Akuma until the last patch of Ultra when they became tied, and it took him 2 health buffs to catch up to Akuma. A lot of people also have selective memory from around this time because despite some players that strongly believed Akuma was strong, many tournament players didn't, to the point that Takedo was apparently being pressured by Echo Fox to drop the character, as mentioned by Sajam after Takedo's EVO win in 2017. Akuma was an unknown quantity at this point in time.
Forever, you know, when he joined Echo Fox, he picked Akuma, and his manager AJ asked him, "Are you sure about Akuma?" Takedo looked at him and he said, "Trust Takedo. Trust Takedo, believe in me," and you can see the fruits of his labors. The pose on the evolution stage!
For reference, I'll be highlighting the changes to Akuma in different colors depending on the gravity of the change and if it was a buff or a nerf. Significant nerfs are in red, minor nerfs are in yellow, and minor buffs are in light blue. There are no significant buffs from this point. The extra health in Season 2 was the only one. Season 3 was the beginning of a trend for Akuma balancing, albeit the only patch with more than one nerf I would consider significant. The first we'll cover is Forward Heavy Punch. It's a short hop that goes over lows and is immune to throws after some startup, specifically on the 6th frame. It works a lot like a shimmy as far as beating delay techs. But unlike a shimmy, it doesn't lose to lows. Next is the buff to medium Tatsu. This one is very important for Akuma's kit, so buffs to it are particularly welcome. This is Akuma's main cancel for one button confirms, and unlike light Tatsu, it hits crouching opponents. At most ranges where you can connect a crouch medium kick in footsies, the first hit of medium Tatsu whiffs, meaning it'll only hit twice. Medium Tatsu only allows follow-ups if all 3 hits connect, or if only the last hit connects. But hitting twice is still good for Akuma for Oki and screen carry, as he gets to dash twice to time his meaty. The buff increased the damage to the last 2 hits of medium Tatsu, but only when the first hit whiffs. You would think this buff makes the damage closer to a full screen medium Tatsu, but it actually deals more damage when it connects this way. This was a nice pickup for Akuma. Extra damage in common scenarios a character can create is one of the best ways to buff them. While it was nice, it's still only a minor buff in my opinion. For the sake of brevity from this point forward, we will be either lumping minor nerfs together or ignoring them if they are not that relevant, like Akuma's post-CA juggles. Those were nice for some fat damage in the right scenarios, but not a major contributing factor to Akuma's tier. The biggest nerf from this patch was the EX Shoryuken V-Trigger cancel. This knockdown was untechable in Season 2 and led to a powerful 50-50 fireball mix-up that gave Akuma great damage if the opponent guessed wrong. and if the opponent blocked it, Akuma was still plus to continue his offense. This mix-up technically still exists, but only off of Crush Counter Sweep V-Trigger Cancel at the right range. You don't really see it used all that much now. Next, we'll be lumping the changes to VT1 together. During VT1, the air fireball was nerfed to consume more V-timer. DP took a damage nerf, but his ground fireball was buffed to consume less V-timer. All in all, the trigger changes were a net negative for Akuma, but at the time, it was still one of the best triggers in the game. In Season 3.5, a lot of anti-air jabs were nerfed, which included both of Akuma's, so no further explanation needed. Stand medium kick and crouch heavy punch were nerfed on whiff. These are Akuma's best buttons in neutral, so he has to be more careful with them now. Specifically for stand medium kick, the nerf allowed Akuma's opponent to jump out of it if he cancelled it into EX red fireball. This was one of the really light seasons in terms of Akuma nerfs. Many players were more concerned with Kami and Guile at this point. This patch was one of the most interesting. Let's start with the Hadouken nerf. This one is easier to show with hitboxes than demonstrate. I've really poorly highlighted the old hurtbox in red so it will stand out better. The red line is where Akuma's hands used to stop extending, and the green beyond it is where it extends now. This is a huge difference and makes poking with Akuma's fireball much more risky. But the opposite was done to his red fireballs. All were buffed in some way. Light was sped up by 3 frames, and both light and medium had their extended hurt boxes at the hands reduced significantly, while the heavy version was only buffed on block by going down to -4. But EX red fireball was hit really hard. They nerfed not only the damage and stun, but also the burn damage. Burn damage is unscaled in Street Fighter V, and having this available gave Akuma a meaningful way to spend meter, especially in stun situations. If you stun your opponent after a highly scaled combo, it's generally not worth spending meter on your stun punish, because the meterless punish will be very similar. This was not the case for Akuma. For the sake of being thorough, that combo stunned Ryu at 297 damage and maximum scaling. The final combo after the stun punish was 340, but Street Fighter V's training mode doesn't account for burn damage, and since this is post-nerf, the total damage for the post-stun portion of the combo is 54 points. Some characters spin bar for less damage on their normal combos. Pre-nerf, this combo would have done an additional 12 damage, 2 points for a fully scaled 120 damage fireball, and 10 more burn damage for a total of 66 damage. The rest of these changes aren't really interesting enough to cover thoroughly. The Demon Flip Grab is probably the most impactful nerf, but the nerf to EX Demon Flip Slide took away a cheeky side switch option that was plus on block, especially considering Demon Flip option select. The buff to medium Shoryuken gave him a bit more damage on crosscuts and tight anti-air situations, but most Akuma players stuck to back heavy punch for general anti-air. VT1 Air Fireball got a second helping of the same nerf it got previously to chew up even more of his V-timer. V-Skill 1 got a minor buff, and V-Trigger 2 got multiple buffs, but no one was using it, so they were mostly irrelevant. Again, a lot of minor changes not worth demonstrating, but the final significant nerf of the video is here. Up until this point in time, it was a given that once per round, Akuma was going to do heavy red fireball, V-trigger cancel, and you just had to hold that. If you were doing anything during the freeze, Akuma could respond accordingly. The only way to demonstrate this now is in trial mode, but I think if you're watching this video, you've seen Takedo do it a million times. It's hard to pick which nerf was bigger between this and the Season 2 Fireball mix-up. This stuck around a lot longer, so people were probably more frustrated with it, but I imagine the same would have happened if it got nerfed in Season 2 and the Fireball mix-up stayed. The second biggest nerf here is to Crouch Medium Punch. This is Akuma's plus frame button he uses to bully his opponents and establish his walk-up pressure. The most common string before this nerf was 2 crouch medium punches into stand medium punch into light red fireball. This no longer works due to the pushback, and just to make sure it was hit hard enough, Capcom also nerfed the pushback on light red fireball. This shows how interesting fighting game design is. Akuma wants pushback on red fireball, but not on crouch medium punch, because the moves serve different purposes. His throw was also nerfed a bit, so his post-throw situation isn't as scary. Heavy punch target combo got a juggle potential buff to allow heavy DP if he confirms a crush counter, and forward heavy punch got some projectile frames. This is the last patch that's relevant to Akuma's tier, as the most recent patches only changed some collision boxes and V-Skill 2, which no one uses. So after all these nerfs, how is Akuma still considered top 1? Ignoring that other characters have also been kept in check, it's just how tight his kit is. In Magic the Gathering, if a deck is considered incredibly synergistic and all of its cards interact well with each other, they say that it fires on all cylinders. This is exactly how Akuma's kit works. Not because everything works together just in his combos, but in his design. Stand Medium Kick is my vote for best normal in the game. A normal with this kind of range and whiff punish potential on a 5-frame button is insane, and because Akuma takes a big step forward when he raises his knee, if he cancels into Light Tatsu, then he cancels from the forward positioning and never steps back. This makes stand medium kick into Light Tatsu consistent in nearly every case, and because it forces stand, Akuma doesn't even have to worry about crouching opponents. But back to the main questions. Does the side switch nerf hurt Akuma that badly? Is it even a nerf at all? Will he still be high tier? First off, I have to say to those claiming it wasn't a nerf, just a balance, y'all are being extra. Balancing happens by nerfing things that are too strong and buffing things that are too weak. If it gets balanced and comes out weaker, it was nerfed. If your argument is he should have never had it in the first place, that implies to me that you think it was too strong, so it's also a nerf in that case. But does it hurt Akuma? Yes, but not enough to drop him from top tier, and here's why. Obviously, we don't know what else the new balance changes have in store for Akuma, but if this was it, he would still have a meterless side switch route that gave him Oki. The only reason this route isn't used currently is because it deals less damage than the Light Tatsu route. But that's how balancing Akuma goes in Street Fighter V. They take away his optimal tool for a certain situation, and he just starts using the former second best option in its place. Akuma is one in a handful of characters that have received pages of nerfs and remained high tier. Urien, Rashid, Cammy all come to mind. These characters just have very strong kits, and nerfing them outside of the extremes isn't going to change that. The only way to drop their tier is to present them with bad matchups, which has sort of happened to Cammy more than the others in this group, but even she's not horribly affected. Thanks for watching.